So, good morning, class. Today's topic is the biological classification part 2. It is started from the kingdom fungi, as we already told you that the fungi constitute a unique kingdom of heterotrophic organism, and they show a great diversity in the morphology and habitat. Near about 3 lakhs fungus are found on this earth. Mostly the fungi are the heterotrophic in nature and absorb the soluble organic matter from the dead and decay substances or substrate, and that's why the fungus are called the saprophytes. Sapro means dead and decay material. Those that depend on the living plant and animal, they are known as the parasites. They can also live as symbiont also in the association with the algae as a lichen, and with the roots of the higher plants as mycorrhiza. In the case of lichen, it is known as the mycobiont and phycobiont. Mycobionts algae and phycobionts is the fungi, and the phycobionts is known as the algae. With the when it is going to associate with the roots of the higher plants, it is known as the mycorrhiza. Myco means fungus, association with the rhiza means the root. And the reproduction in the fungus can take place by the means of vegetative, for example, fragmentation, the breaking of the hypha, fission, and the budding. In the asexual mode of reproduction, it is done by the help of the spores that are known as the conidia, or chain-like spores, or sometimes it is known as the sporangiospore or the zoospores. And in case if the sexual reproduction is found in the fungi, it is with the help of the oospore, means just like an ovum or same spores, ascospores in case of the Ascomycetes fungus, and in case of the basidiums is known as the basidiospores. So there are 3 different types of spores are responsible for the asexual mode of reproduction. Here you can see here the fungus are the 4 types. Rather it is of 5 types previously. First group is known as the Myxomycetes, and the responsible agents are known as the slime molds, but nowadays it is coming under the previous kingdom, that is the Protista. So true fungus are the Phycomycetes and Ascomycetes, then Basidioomycetes, but some fungus are known as the Deuteromycetes. They are known as the imperfect fungus because the sexual reproduction is not yet known. In the first group, Phycomycetes, the member of Phycomycetes are found in aquatic habitat. They are mostly found in the water and sometimes on the decaying wood in a moist and damp places, or we can say it is an obligate parasite on the plants. The mycelium is aseptate, and the synocytic means septa is there is no division of the cell wall. Asexual reproduction take place by the zoospores. It is known as the motile, means the flagella is present, or sometimes non-motile, they are known as the aplanospore. Few common examples are coming under the Phycomycetes. A very important fungus is known as the mucor or the rhizopus. It is known as the common bread mold, that is mentioned earlier. And the second is the fungus on the mustard plant. It is known as the albuco candida. Second group of the fungus is known as the Ascomycetes, commonly known as the sac fungi. Ascus means the sac. The Ascomycetes are mostly multicellular in nature, and for example, a very important fungus is known as the penicillium, responsible to drag the drug is known as the penicillin. And rarely, sometimes it may be unicellular. For example, of the unicellular is the yeast, Saccharomyces, that used in the bakery industry. They are saprophytic in nature, sometimes decomposers. They can decompose the organic and inorganic materials. And in case of the living in the host cell is known as the parasites, and sometimes these Ascomycetes are the coprophilous also, that growing on that cow dung. And mycelium is branch and sometimes septate. Branching myceliums and the septa is divided the each and every cells, and each cell have a cell wall, and inside the cell there is a one nucleus. Agaricus and Puccinia, very important fungus, commonly known as Basidiospores, because it's just like a basidia is known as the spore, that's why it is known as the bracket fungi, or we can say it is a puff ball, just like a puff ball. Very common example is known as the mushroom. They grow in the soil and or logs on the tree stump also, and in living plants bodies, or in the case of the parasitic form. The rust and smuts are a very common example that create the disease in the case of the wheat and barley crops. And the mycelium is branch and septate. Very common examples are the agaricus, that is the mushroom. We use the mushroom. Mushroom is an edible fungus, and Astilago is responsible. The fungus responsible for the smut disease, and Puccinia is known as the rust disease. Puccinia is of mainly is of three types: black rust, and brown rust, yellow rust, or orange rust. The last group of the fungus is known as the Deuteromycetes. It is known as the imperfect fungus because only the asexual mode of reproduction, and we can say it is a sexual mode of phase of these fungus are known. When the sexual form of this fungus will be discovered, they will be moved into the class they rightly belongs, or in the Phycomycetes, or in the Ascomycetes, or in the Basidiospores. A few examples are known as the Alternaria, Colletotrichum and Trichoderma. There are three very important fungus are coming under the Deuteromycetes. Alternaria is responsible to create the disease in the tomato plants. In this picture you can see a rotten stem are seen in the tomato plants. This is due to the Alternaria. Alternaria is responsible for the disease caused in the tomato plant. This is the Trichoderma, responsible to create the disease parasitic forms in the maize. You can see the first figure is the healthy maize, and after that a very rotten area is seen due to this fungus that is known as the Trichoderma. And this one is known as the Colletotrichum falcatum. It is found in the sugarcane. Here you can see the internal view of the sugarcane. It is a red rot of sugarcane. The disease is known as the red rot of sugarcane. And due to this infection, we find that alcoholic smell or alcoholic fermentation is found in the sugar juice. The next very common example of that is not coming under the fungus or in the any other group, but it is an association of a fungus and algae. So we have to study it in the class fungus. And lichens are the symbiotic association. Basically it is not found in the nature. It is a symbiotic or the mutual useful association between the algae and fungi. The algal component is known as the phycobionts, and the fungus is known as the mycobiont, as we know. And the algae are the autotrophic, and one is the autotrophic and another is the heterotrophic, basically, respectively. The algae prepare their food for the fungus, and the fungus provides shelter and absorb the minerals, nutrients, and absorb also water for its partner, that is the algae. So close in this association that if one saw a lichen in a nature, one would never imagine that they had two different organisms within them. You can't differentiate that this portion is known as the algae and this portion is the fungus. It is an association. Lichens are very good pollution indicator. They do not grow in the polluted areas. This is the fruiting body of the lichen. You can see in this picture the hilly areas where no pollution is there. The lichens are found on the rocks, bedrocks. These are the lichens, the association of the fungus and algae. These lichens are found on the tree. The association of the lichens are found on the tree. Now the next kingdom is known as the Plantae. Kingdom Plantae include all eutrophic chlorophyll containing organisms that are known as the autotrophic plants. A few members are partially heterotrophic in nature, such as we can say it is an insectivorous plants, or we can say a parasitic plant. The plant cell have an eukaryotic structure with the prominent chloroplast and cell wall mainly made up of the cellulose. So in case of the plant, the cell wall is made up of the cellulose. And the plant include the algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperm and angiosperm. There are the five major groups. One is the algae, then second is the bryophytes, third one is the pteridophytes, fourth one is the gymnosperm, and fifth one is the angiosperm. We will discuss the entire kingdom Plantae in the chapter number 3 and discuss the kingdom Animalia in the chapter number 4. But here is a brief reference of the kingdom Animalia. That is, this kingdom is characterized by the heterotrophic eukaryotic organism. Heterotrophic means they cannot prepare their food, and eukaryotic means true nucleus is there, and most examples that the multicellular and they lack the cell wall. That in the case of the animal kingdom, all animal cell have the lacking of the cell wall. In case of the plant, the cell wall is present over there and it is made up of the cellulose. They directly or indirectly depend on the plant for the food. Sometimes they directly depend upon, means they are known as the herbivores, and sometimes they depend upon the animal that depend already on the plant. So sometimes they are known as the directly or indirectly depend upon the plant. They digest their food in an internal cavity. The cavity is there present is known as the alimentary cavity or alimentary canal, and store the food reserves as a glycogen, or we can say or in form of the fat also. So all the animals have a stored reserve food material in form of the glycogen or in form of the fat, and most of them are capable for the purpose of the locomotion. So locomotion and movement is the main characteristics of the kingdom Animalia. Now virus and virides, two very small members in the five kingdom system of the classification of the Whitaker. There is no mention of some cellular organisms like viruses and viroids. The viruses are the non-cellular organisms that are characterized by having an inert crystalline structure, means they have a crystal structure made up of the protein outside the living cell. Hence they infect a cell, they take over the machinery. So basically in an inactive form it is non-living character, it have a non-living character, but when it contacted with the living cell or the host cell, they take over the machinery of that host cell to replicate themselves, to duplicate their genetic material by killing the host. The name virus, that means venom, means poisonous fluids, and was given by the Pasteur Ivanovsky, the Pasteur D.I. Ivanovsky in 1892 in his experiment that viruses on the mosaic plant, tobacco mosaic virus on the tobacco plant. So viruses also contain the genetic material that could be either RNA or DNA. There is never they found together, means RNA and DNA both are not found together. Either RNA is the genetic material or the DNA. No virus contains both RNA and DNA. So a virus is a nucleoprotein, having a nucleoprotein, a nucleus is there and protein is there, and the genetic material is infectious. The main infectious agent is the genetic material of the virus. The viruses can cause so many diseases in the human being, in the animals also, just like mumps, smallpox, herpes, influenza, AIDS, which is a very very common disease causing agent, that is known as the HIV virus. In case of the human being, in plant the symptoms can be in the mosaic formation, means there is the bending, there is the patches, brown color patches are found developed on the surface of the leaf. The leaf will be rolling and or curling. Sometimes yellowing means the lacking of the chlorophyll, and sometimes the veins are going to be cleared, vein are clearing. So this is the tobacco mosaic virus structure of the virus is known as the capsid is made up of the protein, and there is a RNA, single strand RNA is there. So this is the TMV or tobacco mosaic virus causing the tobacco mosaic disease in case of the tobacco plant. Next very small organism is known as the viroids. It is discovered in 1972 by the T.O. Diener. Discovered a very new, it is also a infectious agent that was smaller than the viruses, and it caused spindle tuber disease in the potato plant. When it occurs, the potato tubers may transform into a spindle sac. It was found to be a free RNA. There is only free RNA, and it lacked the protein code. No protein is there, only RNA is there, free RNA is there, and that is found in the viruses. Hence the name viroids, name has given by the Diener. The RNA of the viroids was of a very low molecular weight. One example of the bacteriophages, that bacteriophages are known as the bacteria eating viruses. It is a very common bacteriophages, T2 viruses. It is also known as the T2 viruses, and this viruses is play very important role in the genetic engineering processes, in the biotechnological reactions. So bacteriophages is used in the genetic field for the genetic discoveries. This is all about this second chapter. Thank you and have a nice day.